everyone, I'm John Evans, and welcome to another episode of One on One. We're coming up on 2 years since Roy Cooper raised his right hand and became the governor of North Carolina. One of the first battles he fought was HB 2. He's gone to court several times against the Republican leaders in North Carolina's General Assembly. And in those 2 years, Roy Cooper has also had to lead this state through a pair of devastating, costly, deadly hurricanes. As we reach the end of 2018, I had the opportunity to sit down with Governor Roy Cooper to talk about the first 2 years in office. We're coming up on 2 years since you raised your right hand and took that oath. Looking back, what's it been like for you?
It's been the greatest honor of my life and the greatest challenge as well. When I think about the state I was born in, that I love so deeply, to have the opportunity to lead it in this way has been an amazing thing. I've had fun every day. Some days have been more fun than others, I will admit, but it has been a challenge but an amazing opportunity. When you look at the fact that we have announced almost 40,000 jobs, new jobs over the last 2 years that are better paying jobs as well. Mm-hmm. The fact that we have pushed this legislature to do more with education, not enough, but they've increased pre-K slots by 3,500. They have paid more to starting teachers. We've reinstituted the Teaching Fellows Scholarship. I feel very positive about what we've been able to do. We were able to repeal House Bill 2. We've been able to get this General Assembly to agree to a certain amount of economic incentives that are absolutely critical to getting us to the table to be able to compete for these businesses. Mm-hmm. I feel positive about what we're doing and looking forward to the next 2 years, particularly with a more balanced legislature come January.
What's been tougher than you thought it would be? I imagine in your time in the General Assembly you had an idea of what the inhabitants of this home did, but what's been tougher than you thought it might be?
I think trying to get the General Assembly to do some things that I think make common sense that they weren't able to do. I believe that, and I believe we can do it next year, but I had wanted to get Medicaid expanded by now. There are a lot of red states with Republican governors that have done it, and there are Republican governors who have said this is one of the best things that have happened to our state, because in North Carolina it would ensure over 600,000 people, many of them working, who have a hard time getting insurance now. It would help us fight the opioid crisis. It would help us keep rural hospitals afloat. It would provide tens of thousands of good paying jobs. It would help private businesses with their premiums, because guess what, when you take indigents off the rolls, it's better for the whole healthcare system. And it's been frustrating and hard not to get it done. I'm hoping that with the new legislature and with the fact that I'll have a stronger veto that we can get it done. But things that you would think could get done for common sense often get blocked because of politics. And that's been frustrating, but we can fight through this. I think the people have sent us a strong message in November that they want balance. They want us to talk to each other. They want us to try to achieve consensus. We've been able to do that some in a limited way. Mm-hmm. We need to do more of it.
Lowest point in the past 2 years, a time you walked in the mansion, threw the wallet down, threw the keys down and said, man, what a job,
it is after Hurricane Florence, meeting person after person whose life was so devastated. To hear the stories about people not having a place to go because their house is underwater, a small business that just doesn't even know how they're going to get started again, a church that has water up to the roof, and talking with the minister and the congregants, wondering about what's going to happen to them, seeing a farmer who's already leveraged to the hilt, standing out in a field of cotton that is just absolutely destroyed, and coming home at the end of the night with all of the stories that I heard, and sitting on the edge of the bed and just thinking about how are we going to make sure that we get help to to these people? How are we going to coordinate it? And there were a lot of stories of despair that I heard and continue to hear today, because I'm going into these counties every single week, sometimes several times a week. At the time, I was doing it 4 and 5 and 6 times a week, and will continue to do it because recovery is a long-term process. But I'm also exhilarated by the resilience and determination of the people of this state. I've heard so many stories. The woman in Wilmington who got rescued by a Wilmington firefighter. He told her she had 15 minutes to get out. She didn't have very much to start with, grabbed a few things. He got her out in a boat. I met her in a shelter. She had those few things left. She had nothing else. And I heard her story, and I said, I am so sorry. I hope we can help. She said, wait a minute. I thank God I'm alive. I thank God for that brave Wilmington firefighter. I thank God for all these volunteers who are trying to help me, and many of them have had their home flooded. She said, I'm going to make it. And I've told that story to several people to say, we got to help her. We got to help her make it. So we're going to get through this. North Carolina's going to get through this. The Wilmington area is going to get through this. So many small businesses are back open for business in Wilmington. It's a great place to go. We still got work to do, however, in making sure we fully recover from this.
But tell me about Roy Cooper, the man. Is it more tiring than you thought it was going to be? Do you have to did you have to change exercise habits? You have to change eating? I mean, it has to be more demanding physically than you thought, or am I wrong?
It's demanding physically, but all you have to do is think about somebody who just got their home flooded and is trying to drive 30 miles every day to a job because they have to live somewhere else, and I've got it easy. That is the truth. That is the honest truth. I'm so lucky to be here, having grown up in this state, grown up working on a farm, having to get to this point and to have an opportunity to get to do the things that I've wanted to do to help this state. I've had more energy than I've ever had. I get up really early. I do brisk walking. I used to be a runner. The knees and everything else, but I got my Fitbit, and I guess that's a commercial. But I got my steps every day. I have a rowing machine here, which I use several times a week. I got a big sit-up ball, so I get my exercise every day. That's pretty critical to do. I've eaten more than I should. I go different places, and I just grab things to eat. And you know, I don't weigh a whole lot more than I've ever weighed, but I do weigh a little bit more than I've ever weighed in my entire life right now, even with the
New
exercise.
Year's resolution, right?
So I need to do better. I continue to say that. But it's, you know, and I've got a wonderful wife who's doing a great job as First Lady. My 3 daughters, they're all adults. They're doing things with their lives. They're happy that none of them are married, no grandkids. But they're all in this with us too, so we're grateful.
Let me take that before I start getting with issues of the day. How has it been on your wife and your family? Because the criticism has obviously been more. You've had to go around and deal with it. I imagine come home with a lot more weight on your shoulders with the 2 hurricanes and with everything else that you went through. How has it been on them? Do they want to rise up and defend Dad and defend husband?
They do. Sure, they take it much more emotionally than I do. As a matter of fact, I'm sort of used to it, and you have to take one thing and go to the next. But they love their dad, and she loves her husband, and it's tough for them to see sometimes. But we have been doing this for a while. I had the job of Attorney General in North Carolina, and so they understand it, and they're living their own lives. Kristen has really taken to this job as First Lady. She's made it a point to go into every county and do something with the people there, mostly related toward helping children, the arts, but she's been to 63 of the 100 counties thus far. We've got a big state. We've got.
Yes, we do.
It is a challenge to go to every place. So she's doing great, and I've appreciated the good work she's done.
Issues of the day. There's something going on in Bladen County and Robeson County with this congressional district election, the fraud and allegations. As you sit back now, I guess there's a bill that you're thinking about vetoing. I don't know if you have today or not. all this and how it stands, how does it need to play out in Roy Cooper's mind? Should there be a new election? Should there be a new primary?
These allegations are disturbing. People deserve honest and fair elections, and from things that I have been reading about the allegations, which obviously they have to prove them, but a lot of people's vote will not have counted, and that is disturbing. Under the law, the State Board of Elections has the authority to call for a new election. They're in the process of their investigation. I want them to work hard to be fair about all of this. But from what I've seen, it would appear to me that they would have a strong basis to call for a new election. This legislation that was just passed had to do with the structure of the Elections Board. Mm-hmm. It had been working pretty well for 100 years, and as soon as I got elected, even before I took office, the Republican leadership changed it all and took the authority away from the governor. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years is trying to get a constitutional board in place, and this legislation finally does that, which is positive. But the problem is that they added on a lot of protections for wrongdoers. They limited investigators and prosecutors. They put confidentiality requirements in these investigations. They have done more to tie the hands of people who are trying to right these wrongs. And it's to protect politicians and others. And at a time like this, you would think that we'd be wanting to give prosecutors and investigators more tools instead of less. So what I'm asking them to do is just remove that part of it. Let's talk about that stuff later. We're going to have to learn some lessons from what happened in Bladen and maybe even surrounding counties, and we're going to have to fix it, and we're going to have to give investigators and prosecutors more tools. But don't make it more secret. Don't tie their hands. That
part is enough for you to veto.
Absolutely,
when some of the other parts go back to the way you want?
I'm going to veto it. I want, though, the public to let these legislators know that it is important for them to sustain this veto, or either write me a new bill, write the people a new bill that takes out this part about covering things up. And I'll sign it. I'll sign it today. We can go home for Christmas. I'll be excited about that.
The consent order between the Department of Environmental Quality, Chemours, and Cape Fear River Watch. There are some who think it's a positive step because of what it does in Bladen County at the Fayetteville work site. But there are others, like the New Hanover County Commissioners, Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, who say it doesn't do enough, especially downstream. Where do you stand? Does it do enough? Do you support that consent order?
It is a big first step. We know we have more to do with these type of contaminants because we don't know a lot about them. The Department of Environmental Quality has done hard work, even with not enough help from the General Assembly, to stop the discharge of GenX into the Cape Fear River, which is critical. And now this order greatly, up into the 90%, stops the air emissions from this and requires them to do a lot of other things. So this is a process, and it's not the end. We also have a science advisory committee that is working to identify these other contaminants that are out there and figuring out what we need to do to approach it.
But can you see the point of some of the bodies down there that they have, and through several steps, trusted the process, and the process really has kind of let them down? And what happened? So you see how they're a little skeptical of this.
I can see that. I do know that you've got a Department of Environmental Quality now and a secretary who cares deeply about this issue, who wants to fight it. You got to understand too what the potentials are in court and how much you can get out of a court case. You can carry this all the way through and fight it, and you may end up with a lot less than you get with this consent order, because one of the important things is you get it right now, and the benefits start right now. So I think they've done a good job with it. They know, though, that there is more to do down the road.
And so you see where the folks down there in the Wilmington, Brunswick County come from?
Of course I do. We've been listening to them and working with them to fight this problem. We need the Department of Environmental Quality needs more help because, over the past few years, they have cut the number of people who do inspections and people who can make this better. And I hope that's one of the improvements we can make next year, is that the General Assembly gives them the tools that they need to do the job.
Is your walk down to Jones Street next year going to be a lot more enjoyable?
Sure, yeah. And legislative walks up to the Capitol are going to be better too. I've met a lot of these people who've just been elected. They are amazing. They're smart. They're energetic. It's not easy running for the General Assembly these days. You don't get a whole lot of pay, and you have to spend a lot of money, and you have to hear a lot of bad things about you in these tough, rough and tumble elections. But we have some quality people who are just doing it because they know they care about their state.
But you can walk down there and realize that your veto is not DOA.
That's right.
So that's got to make that walk more
the
pleasurable.
last 2 years, I think these are the right numbers. It could be off by 1 or 2, but I've vetoed 25 bills. 20 of them have been overridden. 5 have not. I think that percentage will get a lot better this next year. And what I hope is that I don't have to veto as many, because there will be more collaboration on the front end, because they know that I can veto and have that veto sustained. So we're hoping that this will lead to better legislation, better investments in education, more help for the middle class, expanding Medicaid, getting health care, more fighting, more agreement on how we fight for clean water and renewable energy, fight offshore drilling. All of this, I feel much more positive about next year, and I'm looking forward to it.
Fill in the blank. I like it when blank.
I like it when I walk into a classroom and see a great teacher interacting with kids. I go into a lot of our public schools. Let me just tell you, there's a lot of things that positive that are happening in our public schools. And if we can get more good teachers and we show the ones that they're there, that we respect them, we're going to create a better environment to get people better paying jobs. So I like it when I do that. I love going into schools.
I don't like it when blank.
I don't like it when the legislature has turned away billions and billions of dollars that we could have used for health care for North Carolina, which is tax money we've already paid. We got to expand Medicaid.
2 more questions. When you walk the dog like you were this morning, when you greeted us this morning, what do you think about when you're walking around the grounds of this place?
I use my walking time as thinking time. I think about the people that I want to help. I think about the strategy of how I'm going to get there. Sometimes I will listen to music and try to relax a little bit. Ben, the dog, loves going on a walk, and I'll get a lot of wet nose and tail wags on the leg if I don't take him on that walk. So he is a part of my good health, which is a good thing.
You're going to run again in 2020?
It's too early to be making official announcements. I do think that we're making progress with me as governor of the state, so I look forward to continuing to do that the next couple of years.
Governor Roy Cooper, thank you for opening the doors today to this beautiful mansion, and I hope you and the family have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you to Governor Roy Cooper for sparing some of his valuable time to sit down for our podcast. I ask you if you would take the time, please, to rate and review our podcast. Let me know what you think of our product. The more ratings and reviews we get, the higher we'll be listed and the more listeners we can reach with our weekly interviews. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of One on One.